As well as the standard fair use policy, this video is protected under the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1787.
Moors are awake. We are taking our place on this planet.
Islam Moors.
My nationality is Moorish.
Body cam video from state troopers shows how the incident in Wakefield July 3rd plays out. It was 1 a.m. when state police encountered nearly a dozen men on 95 who were heavily armed and wearing body armor. The self-proclaimed militia was traveling from Rhode Island to Maine for some type of training. None allegedly has any license to carry weapons. The incident led to a 9-hour standoff.
Many months later.
All right, straight after. Hear ye. All present, I'm ready to do for the Honorable Judge Deacon, Judge of the Superior Court, now sitting in Woburn for transaction of criminal business. Draw near, give attention, it shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. May be seated for the now session.
Morning, jurors. Hope everybody enjoyed the day away from court yesterday. Thank you for being on prompt today. I apologize, as I mentioned, sometimes there are things that come up that unavoidably and unforeseeably that I have to address outside your presence. I'm sorry if you waited this morning. Let me ask you, has each of you been able to comply with the instructions I gave you yesterday or Monday? All jurors indicating affirmative, by the way, so if they're nodding their head, affirmative, we can proceed. Before we do, I want to say one thing now so I don't forget to say it later because I'm paying attention to the trial. Tomorrow morning, because there's something that you address outside of your presence, but it's not unforeseeable, it is foreseeable. We're going to ask you to be here tomorrow by 10 a.m. rather than 9. The hope there is that we'll be ready to go right at 10, so hopefully you'll benefit from having an extra hour in the morning for you to be here. But please remember, even if I forget to say it at the end of the day today, to be here tomorrow at 10 rather than 9. With that, I think Ms. Racer-Home, we're going to begin the cross-examination of Officer Holiday. Holiday.
Morning, officer.
Morning.
So on Thursday, you were explaining that you saw these 2 men jogging around 6 a.m. Is that right?
Correct.
And one of them was wearing a long sleeve green army shirt and blue shorts.
Correct.
And the other one was wearing green army fatigues on top and bottom and had a green police on, right?
Correct.
And you saw them and you put on your police license siren, right?
Correct.
And they stopped.
Yes.
And you told them to put their hands where you could see them.
Yes.
And they did that.
Correct.
And you asked them a couple questions, right?
Yes.
About what they were doing.
Correct.
And they answered your question.
Yes.
You could see their hands, right?
Yes.
And one of the men, the one in the blue shorts, while you were talking and looking at him, moved his right hand, you said, towards his right side, right?
Started to come down.
Okay. And you got nervous when you saw that, right?
Correct.
And you could see his hand, but you were nervous about it.
Yes.
Okay. And now he didn't put his hand inside a pocket, right?
No.
He didn't touch anything on his body, right?
No.
And so when you saw his hand moving, that's when you put your firearm in the low ready position, right?
Correct.
And you, at that time, ordered both men to sit down.
Yes.
And they did that.
Yes.
And you ordered them to, again, keep their hands where you can see them.
Yes.
And they did that.
Yes.
Okay. And it was at that point that the additional officers started to arrive?
Yes.
And were those additional officers from Wakefield or state police or both? And so while the additional officers were arriving, the 2 men are still sitting down, right?
Yes.
And you still have your firearm in the low range position, right?
Yes.
Okay. And, once the additional officers arrived, you instructed one of them at first to stand up, right?
Yes.
And then that person was handcuffed, right?
Yes.
And then you instructed the second person to stand up,
Yes.
and that person was handcuffed.
Yes.
Okay. And, you said that the person in blue shorts, so you didn't handcuff that person, right? Somebody else handcuffed. Okay. But you were still there while that was happening.
Yes.
Okay. And so blue shorts had a firearm, right?
Yes.
And that was strapped in the chest area.
Well, I don't know. I couldn't quite see where it was from the front.
Okay. It wasn't visible when you were interacting with him, right? It was underneath the shirt. Okay. And so you work for Wakefield Police Department, right? Not the state police.
Wakefield.
And you weren't wearing a body worn camera. Nothing further. Thank you.
Redirect examination. Thank you, Your Honor. For holiday, that concludes your testimony. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your excuse. Next witness, call.
Commonwealth calls William Buckley.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Captain Buckley.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Good morning.
You may proceed.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. A nice clear voice so everybody can hear you. Give the jury the full name. Could you spell it for the benefit of our court reporter as well? It's William L. Buckley. Last name is Buckley, B-U-C-K-L-E. What do you do for a living, sir? I'm retired from the Middlesex Sheriff's Office. I now work for Delhi University. At the Middlesex Sheriff's Office? I was the commander of the incident management team, as well as in charge of the command center and fire safety. So, in addition to your duties, what would, with respect to operations at the facility, and I assume you mean the Middlesex House of Corrections, record? Correct. What were your duties at that facility first? I would oversee all the fire safety, fire prevention, and communications. And you have duties as part of your job that involve things happening outside of the facility? I did. I was the commander for the NETLAC Incident Management Team. What is NETLAC? Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. It's a unit made up of different police departments, the 2 sheriff's offices from Middlesex County that would respond and assist each other in whatever needed to be done. So it's a group of local police departments as well as the Middlesex Sheriff and the Essex Sheriff? Yes. Okay. And in terms of providing assistance, what are some of the forms of assistance or resources that NETLAC makes available to law enforcement? The SWAT team, regional response team, incident management team, motorcycles, bicycle unit, negotiators. And is that because, you know, by being a member of NETLAC, then individual departments don't necessarily need to have their own people who can provide all those services to their department? Yes, it's a helping hand to help the cities and towns, especially the small ones that don't have the manpower budgets to provide all those assets in one area. Yeah. So it's essentially a form of resource sharing. Yes. All right, and you mentioned you're retired from working at the sheriff's office. How long did you work there for? It was my 25th year. What was your rank when you retired? I was a captain. Since retiring from there, have you taken another job in law enforcement? Not in law enforcement. Where do you work now? I work at Bentley University. Doing what? I'm the manager of life safety. Basically, it was involved fire safety, fire preventions. Now, we working in your capacity as an investigator for the Middlesex Sheriff's Office on July 3rd, 2021.
I was working as a during the incident.
Did you respond somewhere that morning?
I responded to Wakefield, Massachusetts.
Was there a particular part of Wakefield?
We ended up on the North Ave, Veterans Park, North Ave, where we set up the command post in that way.
Okay. And was NEMLIKE in communication with other police departments and with state police at that point?
All.
And was that in connection to what was going on the highway nearby?
Yes.
About how far was the area you described as the command post on North Ave? About how far was that from the incident on the highway?
I would say less than a mile.
On North Avenue were you there around 6 a.m. in the morning?
I was.
Okay. Did something draw your attention around that time?
A radio call we heard through the radio system at the command post from Wakefield PD. That one of the officers with two suspects matching the description on North Ave.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you do upon learning that?
Myself, along with a few others in the command post, went up. We could see from the distance, we could see the cruiser. So we went up to assist the officer.
And when you say you could see it from the command post, did you give a approximation distance?
Roughly 100 yards, maybe not even.
Okay. What was the lighting like at that point?
It would be like that.
As you approached where you could see the cruiser, what, if anything, else did you see?
Two individuals were sitting on the ground at that point with the Wakefield police officer.
And what do you recall about the appearance and clothing of the individuals seated?
They were both wearing camouflage.
Do you recall approximately how many officers went with you to go check out the situation?
There were 3 other officers with me, so 4.
So as you approached, can you give the jury an idea of whether you're coming in from behind the seated suspects or perpendicular to suspects in the officer?
We would be going almost head on to the officer, going up North Ave towards the 128 area. So we'd be going straight on.
Okay. And was that Officer Halliday? Wakefield?
Yes.
Okay. And so what, if anything, occurred as you approached?
As we approached, the 4 officers, myself, and the 3 others approached. The Wakefield officer was over at his cruiser. I just explained to the officer as we approached and said that if you would cover, we'll go in and we'll cop. Just detain them at this moment. And that's the officer agreed.
At that point, what were you wearing for a uniform?
At that point, I was wearing tan pants and a polo shirt with a Middlesex Sheriff's Office.
Okay. And so what did you do after that?
Once I went in and the officer, I spoke with the officer as we approached. I told him that I would cuff. I just went in. We asked the individuals to stand up. They both stood up, asked them to turn around, spread their feet, put their hand behind their back. They complied and did everything. I then went in and cuffed one of the suspects.
And the individual that, the 2 individuals, which of the 2 did you deal with?
Mr. Hernandez.
And what do you recall about the clothing of Mr. Hernandez, apart from, I believe you described camouflage earlier?
He was wearing a long sleeve camouflage and he was wearing shorts.
Okay. All right. And so when he stands up, what occurs?
I asked him to turn around. He then turned around. He complied with my orders, turned around, put his hands behind his back. He complied with all the orders. At that point, I did go in, take possession of his hand and cuff him with the handcuffs.
What after that?
After that, I went to go back search him. I felt on the back that he was wearing body armor. I just alerted the other officers that they were with us and he had body armor on.
And do you have any experience yourself wearing body armor?
I was wearing one that day, yes. Yes.
Okay. And so you were able to detect this by touching what, his back?
His back, correct.
Okay. So what did you do after that?
I continued to pat search once I explained to them that he wore body armor. I continued to pat search him as best I could with body armor on, and went down around his waistband and felt something. I then looked around the body, seen the handle of a handgun, told everybody at that point, weapon, and at that point, I directed the suspect to Neil. Pushed him down, well, put him down, he did comply with all my orders. He went down to his knees on the grass. At that point, I then removed the handgun from like a fanny pack, I guess you would call it, from his waistband.
And was that fanny pack situated in front of his body or to the side or what?
He was kind of right in the middle of his, right under his grass.
So if I understand how you're describing it, Officer Halliday is behind the suspect. The suspect is standing in first. You pat him down and then end up on the other side of the suspect. So that he's in between you and the other officer. Is that the accurate?
Once he went down to his knees, the other officers then came in as I went around to the front to remove the handgun out of the
Okay. And what do you recall about the appearance?
The handgun was just a black handgun. I then removed it. I took about 2 steps forward and then made it empty and safe and then placed it on the ground at my.
How did you make it empty and safe?
I removed the magazine and slid the rack back and placed the rack and walked the slide back.
So I take it it's not a revolver, it's somehow.
It was a semi-auto.
Where did you place it?
I placed it on the ground about a couple of steps in front of the suspect at my feet.
And what happened at that point?
At that point, I stayed with the handgun. Other officers went into detained and continued to search the suspect.
Okay. Were you cognizant of where the second suspect, the second individual wearing camouflage was at that point?
I was, yes.
Was he still on scene or had he been removed?
He was still on scene. He was approximately 6 feet away from the 2 suspects.
And were there officers with that person?
There were.
Did you take note of whether there were any other objects or items on the ground near that person?
On the other suspect?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't see any other ones.
All right. And so what happened after that?
At that point, once I was stood by the gun, as was still on the grass, I stood by that. Other officers continued to come into our area. At that point, the state police as well came into the area. Once troopers came in, they went in and picked up the handgun, and then from that point, put in the evidence and then to one of the back of their persons.
Is that Trooper Cassidy?
I believe so, yes.
When Trooper Cassidy arrived, did you go with him to certain areas of grass?
I was still at the handgun.
So were you there when you collected it?
I was.
And were you still on scene when he took your suspect in custody?
I was.
Nothing further from Captain.
Cross-examination.
No cross.
Ready, sir, coming?
Well,
I'll ask you a couple of questions about the NEMLAC command post.
yes,
So, did you arrive at 6 a.m. or did you arrive earlier?
I was there early.
What time did you arrive? Do you remember?
I want to say I arrived approximately 3:30 in the morning.
Okay. And did you, when you arrived, was it to that same area you were describing earlier?
To the north end.
Okay. And when you got to the North Ave area, what was the scene there like?
At that point, at 3:30 in the morning, was quiet, other than police officers being around the area. It was quiet.
Okay. And at that point, were the police officers who were there, Wakefield police officers or NLAC or something else?
A little bit of everything. A little bit of that I can't wait to.
About how many officers do you think were there when you first arrived?
On the North Ave area, probably 10 maybe.
Okay. And then over the course of the next 2.5 hours, did additional people arrive?
They would arrive at the command post and then be sent out to designated assigned areas.
Okay. And so your role that day was the commander of the incident management team under NEMLAC, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the NEMLAC response, was that both at the command post and also closer on the highway?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know approximately how many NEMLAC affiliated officers responded that day?
In total,
In total?
on the day, probably say 20.
Okay. And was there also some special NEMLAC equipment that came to the area that day?
We brought in the command posts and the
What was the second thing you said?
the Olympic vehicles,
Oh, are those the Bearcats?
the vehicles.
Okay. And do you remember how many NEMLAC Bearcats there were in that day?
They brought both of these.
Okay. And when you say you brought the command post, can you just explain what does that mean?
We arrived with the smaller command post, which is the van, it's a sprinter size white van.
Okay. Okay, and then when you were talking about approaching the two suspects who were sitting down, you said that you said to Officer Halliday, if you cover, we'll go in, or I'll go in, or something like that?
We were going to come.
Okay, and when you said if you covered, what you meant was with his firearm, is that right? Or what do you mean by that?
More eyes on, just from having that distance from the backside of us.
Okay, so can you just explain, what do you mean by cover? What did you mean by if he covered?
To explain would be, he was on the back, so he would have been on the backside of us, now by his cruiser, would be to just have that eyes on the backside of us to watch and cover us
Okay,
from eyes on.
okay, and us would have been you and the other 3 officers arriving, right?
Correct.
Okay, nothing further, thank you.
Thank you.
Redirect, Commonwealth. No, you're on. Captain, that concludes your testimony. Thank you very much. You're excused.
Thank you, Colonel.
Next witness, Commonwealth. Christopher Cassidy.
Stop it here, face the clerk, and everything.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
Thank you.
Morning, Trooper. Welcome.
Good morning, Your Honor.
You may proceed, Counsel. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Nice, clear voice, everybody can hear you. You get a full name, if you could spell your last name. For
Trooper Christopher Cassidy, Cassidy.
and what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm actually a state trooper.
How long have you had that position?
4 years.
What is your assignment currently?
Currently it's assigned to the commercial vehicle enforcement section.
And what prior assignments within the state police?
I work at the state police in Reverse.
Back on July 3rd, 2021, were you working out of the Andover Barracks?
I was
In that capacity, is that a uniformed role or is it a plainclothes role?
uniform.
And were you in uniform that day?
I was
Did you have a marked or unmarked police vehicle?
fully marked cruiser.
You recall what your shift was that you worked that day?
I was working the overnight shift,
So what hours then?
11 to 7:30 in the morning.
And when you came in that day, where did you go?
I assumed patrol as soon as I signed on that day.
And then later, or in the early morning hours of July 3rd, 2021, did you have another assignment?
I did.
What was that?
I was requested to shut down Route 95 and southbound.
And did you do that?
I did.
How did you do
I positioned my cruiser in the middle of the highway and used road flares to divert traffic from the travel lanes.
At any point, were there other vehicles with you taking part of the shutdown?
Yes, Mass DOT provided a truck and some component signage, and then later on another cruiser came and relieved me.
Okay. Fast forwarding to about 6 in the morning, July 3rd, 2021. Did you go someplace else that?
I did.
Where'd you go?
North Ave.
Approximately where are you? Okay.
I believe it was like the 400 block of North Ave.
When you arrived there, what did you see?
I saw 2 suspects that were already in custody. They were on their knees, and I saw several officers standing by either suspect.
Okay. And were you the only state police trooper that arrived at approximate time at that location?
Trooper D. Loretto also arrived around that time.
Okay. Was he also in uniform?
He was.
Did he also have a marked vehicle?
He did.
The people with these officers, were you able to discern what department? Excuse me, people that were with these 2 suspects, could you discern which police department they were with?
Someone from Wakefield PD, and others looked like they were with them.
And of the 2 individuals, what do you recall of their appearance, clothing?
They both had on camouflage, and one of the gentlemen had on blue shorts.
And was of the 2 individuals, was there one that you dealt with at that point?
The one with the blue shorts.
Okay. So what, if anything, did you do with that person?
I searched him first, and then I secured him in the rear passenger compartment.
Was he placed in custody at that point?
He was.
Was there a Captain Buckley from NEMLAC that was with him at that time?
Yes.
And did you and Captain Buckley go over to an area of the ground after you took custody of the blue short belt?
Yes.
What did you do at that point?
There was multiple items on the ground in front of where the gentleman in the blue shorts was kneeling. One of them being a firearm. I secured the firearm in a Massachusetts State Evans bed.
When you picked up the firearm, were there some items with it?
There were 2 magazines with the firearm.
Okay. What did you do with those?
I put them in the same State Evans bed.
And when you collected those items, were you touching them your skin, or did you put on some kind of gloves?
I put on regular medical with the blue style thin latex gloves.
Okay. Was there also other property in the ground that you collected?
There was.
What was it?
Boots, gloves, some miscellaneous items.
What, if anything, do you recall about what the blue shorts person was wearing on his upper body?
Camouflage. He had a t-shirt, I believe, that was camouflage on, and then he also had like a long sleeve shirt, like a fatigue style long sleeve shirt that was still kind of wrapped around his handcuffs.
Okay. Do you recall collecting any other clothing or garments from the ground?
He had a vest that was on the ground as well.
What kind of vest were you wearing?
It was like a ballistic style, like a military looking plate carrier style vest.
Was it light?
It was heavy.
So as you're doing this, was the second suspect still on scene?
He was.
And was there a particular officer dealing with that person?
Trooper D. Loretto was primary for the other suspect.
So once you collected the property and took custody of the gentleman in blue shorts, where did you go?
Transported him back to the state of Standoff.
Okay. And is there a process that you become trained in the booking process that occurs at that barracks?
Yes, sir.
And can you just give a general description of what that process entails?
There are standardized questions that you ask everyone that comes into the barracks. They're usually photographed and fingerprinted.
The purpose of that is to identify who the person is that's found custody.
Correct.
So What types of questions are asked of the person?
Pedigree information, your parents' names, if you have any children, your address, your name, your date of birth, your social security number.
Address, employment, etc.
Correct.
And you described that the people were generally photographed as well?
Yes.
And fingerprinted?
Yes.
All right, did you book any individuals that day, July 3rd?
Yes.
Who did you book?
Wilfredo Hernandez.
We can show you a couple things. And through the booking process, did you take photographs of that person?
Yes.
I'll show you this. Tell me if you recognize the individual in the photograph.
Yes.
Did you take that photograph?
Yes.
It's a fair and accurate depiction of the way he appeared at the Andover Barracks on July 3rd, 2021.
It is.
But offer this as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Objection.
Objection would be exhibit 52.
Publishing exhibit 32 on the projector for the jurors. And the information about Mr. Hernandez, through the booking process, were you able to book him with a date of birth and an address?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall those pieces of information off the top of your head?
His address?
His address or his date of birth?
No, sir.
When you booked him, was that information memorialized somewhere?
It was.
What kind of document?
Booking report?
When reviewing that, refresh your memory?
It would.
Read that to yourself. Take as much time as you need. Let me know if that refreshes your memory. First of all, as to Mr. Hernandez's date of birth. Nothing.
Yes.
What's the date of birth?
Objection.
Same information as before.
Yes.
So ruled. What's the date of birth?
8/1997.
What about the address? Does that refresh your memory about the address you got from this individual, or you booked for this individual about 3 years ago?
Yes.
What's the address?
116 E Shallow in the Bronx.
East Marshalloo in the Bronx?
Yes.
Is it part of the booking process to inventory personal property of the person who's in custody?
It is.
Were you able to locate on the person of Mr. Hernandez an FID card or a license to carry firearms?
It did not.
Was there some kind of purported identification document located on his person?
Yes.
What do you recall about it?
It was a Moorish ID card.
I'm going to show you this photograph. Recognize the item shown in that photograph that I placed before you.
Yes.
What is it?
This was part of Mr. Hernandez's property.
Is that the reported ID you're talking about?
Yes.
It's a fair and accurate depiction of the front side of that ID. as it appeared when you saw it on July 3rd, 2020.
It is.
Okay, this is the next exhibit.
Same objection as with the previous Moorish ID.
No objection.
I mean, before I rule, you're just, objections already ruled, it'll be marked exhibit 53.
Exhibit 53 in the projector for the jurors. I imagine as a state trooper, you've done a lot of motor vehicle stops. And I imagine you've probably seen a lot of different state licenses and federally issued identifications. And do you recognize this to be the identification issued by any state or federal government? I know. Now, there was a second individual you booked that day, is that correct? Correct. Who was that? Mr. Rodriguez. Okay. You had mentioned that Trooper Cassidy had been with, Trooper Di Loretto had been with him when you responded to North Avenue. Do I have that right? Yes. Was Trooper Di Loretto at the barracks with Mr. Rodriguez some point that day? He was. Right. With respect to Mr. Second individual, Mr. Rodriguez, did you go through with them the same standardized booking procedure you discussed for the other gentleman, Mr. Hernandez? Yes. Okay. Take a photograph of it? Yes. Tell the jurors if you recognize the individual depicted in the photograph I placed before you. And who's that? Mr. Rodriguez. Is that photograph taken by you when you booked him on July 3rd, 2021? Yes. The fair and accurate depiction of the way he appeared to you during that process? Yes. This is the next exhibit. No objection.
No objection.
That objection be marked exhibit 54. So not one. First name. We'll get to it. Very well. So put 54 on the projector. You described a minute ago you went through the same standardized booking process for him as well. Is that right? It is, right? And were you able to get a name and other identifying information as part of the book process? Yes. Could you give us his first name if you recall it? Robert? The markings on the box, do you see that it has various lab markings on it? It is. And various lab numbers on it? It is. Okay. The condition of the firearm itself, what position is the slide on top? Slot to the rear. Okay. And is there something you observe about the barrel and the action of the pistol where the bullet would, where the rounds of bullets would normally be placed and fired through? There's a tag through the barrel. And is the magazine actually inserted into the firearm at this point? It is not. Does the ammunition appear to be separate from the magazine, which is in turn separate from the firearm? Yes. Okay. So in its condition as it appears before you, could this be fired? No. So Your Honor, I would propose to mark the box and its contents.
Very well. It will be exhibit BB for identification.
When you first recovered that pistol and the 2 magazines, was the ammunition all separated from it, or was it all together?
It was already separated at that point.
Okay. Had somebody apparently made it safe?
Yes.
As you look at it today, do you observe any kind of trigger lock, locking the trigger? Do you recall seeing such an item back when you recovered it on July 3rd, 2000?
No.
That's all I have for this one.
Johnson.
No cross.
Mr. Racer, John.
Morning.
Good morning.
I want to way back up and just talk to you about when you first arrived on the highway and said you participated in shutting down 95. Is that right?
Yes.
What time did you arrive?
Around 6 a.m. Sorry. Around 1 a.m.
Okay. And when you arrived, what could you see from when you arrived on the highway?
Not much. It was pretty dark out. I was on the other side of the highway from where the incident was actually occurring.
Okay, and so when you say you're on the other side, do you mean you're on the southbound side of 95?
Correct.
Okay. And from being on the southbound side of 95, could you see anything on 95 northbound related to a van or pickup truck or police cars or anything like that?
I could mostly just see like emergency vehicles, any vehicles that would have had their lights activated, but other than that, I couldn't see much.
Okay. And were you like at the highway, were you gonna go to the entrance or exit? Is that where you?
I was directing traffic off a ramp.
Okay. And so that was, it was on the southbound side. Were you north or south from where the van and the pickup truck?
I would have been north.
Okay. And I think you mentioned that initially you just positioned your cruiser to block traffic and use some flares.
Correct.
And then how much time passed before additional resources came to help block off the highway?
It seemed like quite a while. An hour or 2 hours.
Okay. And you said there were some trucks that came to block off the highway?
Mass Highway brought a pickup truck out with some signage and cars.
Okay. And were you aware of something similar happening on the northbound side of the highway?
Yes.
And can you just describe what you thought happening on the northbound side of the highway? In terms of blocking traffic?
I know that there was several Mass DOT assets. I was just hearing it over the radio as far as assisting with road closures.
Okay. And was that happening around the same time that it was happening on your side of the highway?
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Redirect, Commonwealth.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Super. That concludes your testimony. Thank you very much. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, I just need a minute to get the witness. While that's happening, members of the jury would like to stand and stretch, feel free.
For a couple of calls, Michael Kelsey.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Morning to welcome. May proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. Morning. I'd like you to, in a nice, clear voice, so everybody can hear you, give the jury your full name, please, and could you spell your last name, please?
And first name Michael, spelled Michael. Last name is Julce, that's spelled Julce.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a trooper in the Massachusetts State Police.
How long have you had that employment?
Approximately 4.5 years.
Currently where are you?
Southern County DA's office.
You're with the Suffolk Detective Unit?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been there?
Approximately 2.5 years.
Before that, at your time?
It's Humble Bear out of H9, Boston.
Okay. And were you working as a state police trooper on July 3rd, 2021?
I was.
Did there come a time that morning where you responded to Interstate 95 Wakefield?
Yes.
About what time was that?
My memory is also, I don't recall the exact time.
What was it? Before or after 10 a.m.?
After 10 a.m.
Okay. And when you arrived, what was the condition of what did you observe when you arrived?
There was a multitude of law enforcement officers, in addition to us, a bunch of local departments as well. Highway was closed off.
Was there a point in which you were directed to a group of individuals by the median for in custody?
Yes.
Was there a particular individual that your attention was drawn to?
Yes.
Which, what can you recall about the appearance of that individual?
He was wearing military grade gear.
What about, description of that person's appearance and clothing?
It was, military grade gear. That's.
And how did you interact with that person, if at all, at that point?
At that point, I approached the subject. At that point, I was being asked to transport the subject to custody at the time.
To where?
The barracks for booking.
Show you exhibits 21B and 23. Start with exhibit 21B as a boy. Is the individual you interacted with depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
Where?
He is the second person in the right.
Okay. We'll put that on the projector. The jurors can see it. If you could stand by the television, sir, and just indicate by pointing which individual you're referring to. Okay. The individual with the black vest, second from the right of the photograph. Okay. And I'm going to hand you exhibit 23. It's the individual you interacted with depicted in that photograph.
Yes.
Sure.
Second person.
Okay. All right. Well, put this one on the screen as well. Sorry. This is exhibit 23, Ron. Again, you see the individual. Can you point that individual out for the jury, please?
Yes.
This individual. With the black vest, and what do you observe about the center of the vest?
It has some sort of red marking on it.
Okay. What do you observe about that individual's head?
Some sort of black mask.
Okay. You can resume the stand. What did you ultimately do with that individual? Where did you take it?
He was sitting into 84, which is the Medford State Police Barracks.
Okay. Was there a particular trooper who was there who actually did the work of the booking process?
Yes.
Who was that?
For Matthew Curry.
Okay. Now you pointed out, or you described that red marking on the black vest. Did you do anything with that vest?
It was placed in his property. Belonged to
I think that means it was removed from that gentleman's person.
Yes.
Okay. What did you observe about the vest as you removed it and secured it?
Black in color, had a red marking on it. Aside from that, it was military grade vest. Things of that nature.
When you say military grade, are you referring to something that is essentially designed to be body armor?
Yes.
I have nothing further for this witness.
No cross.
No question.
You also that concludes your testimony. Thank you very much. You're excused. Thank you. Next witness.
Charles Luis.
Please solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do. Good morning, sir. Well, morning, sir. You may proceed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
In a nice clear voice so the jury can all hear you. Can you tell us your full name? Could you spell your last name for the record?
Charles Luis, Luise.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a sergeant of state police with Logan Airport.
What do you do there?
We charge of VIP operations, commander of the captain.
It's a captain.
Community action team, we handle all dignitaries that come in and out of Logan Airport.
In terms of, is that a security and protection assignment or what is that?
So as like last week, the president come, so we will work with Secret Service as far as getting the VIP in and out of Logan Airport.
Yes. And how long have you been with the state police?
22 years.
What other assignments have you had in your career?
I was assigned to the drill instructor for the 79 RTT, for the SSPO 19. There's 3 more classes at the State Police Academy. I work for the range, and I'm also on the Special Emergency Response Team.
Okay. You've been a drill instructor at the academy. In terms of the Special Emergency Response Team, what is that?
So there's currently 65 of us. Primarily our mission is for crowd control, search and rescue, and for critical site security.
How long have you had that?
20 years.
Did there come a time on July 3rd, 2021, where when you were called out to do something with the state police?
Yes.
What was that?
So we got to New York just after 4 o'clock in the morning from Lieutenant O'Hara that there was an incident on Route 128 North where some armed subjects were involved in a standoff with some AR-15 weapons.
Objection, motion to strike.
I'll hear you.
When you were at the, on, what time was that?
So the alert was at 4:12, asking for troopers to respond. 4:22, they identified the troopers that were responding. And it was probably within under an hour. And I was up on 128.
In what town?
So it's probably 5:30.
In what town?
Oh, I'm sorry, Wakefield.
Sorry, I'll stand in my head. All right, so you're in Wakefield. Shortly after 10 a.m., did you go to a particular part of Interstate 95?
Yes.
Okay. What did you observe in terms of the vehicles and individuals at the scene?
So at this point, I have no idea how they surrendered or the people surrendered. They all placed in custody. We were called forward to transport the detainees.
Okay. And where were they in relation to the rest of the road?
So I pulled up in which would be the left travel lane, and the person that I transported was in the left median.
Okay. So in the median that separates north and south now?
Correct.
Okay. What do you recall about the clothing and appearance of that individual?
So he very camouflage clothing and body armor.
Any other garments?
Boomy hat.
What's a boomy?
Boomy hat is just like when I was in Panama, I wore to keep the sun off the top of your head.
So it's a wiper.
That's correct.
And what did you do with that individual at 128 or Interstate 95?
So I placed it in the rear of the cruiser.
Did you secure any property from that person?
Yes.
No.
So once I actually was getting in the cruiser, he asked me if I could take his body out.
I'll withdraw the objection now that I've heard the answer.
Very well. The answer would stand then.
So after hearing that request, did you take something off that person?
Yes.
And what'd you do with it?
I placed it in the rear of my cruiser.
What did it look like?
It was a heavy military grade external carrier. They call them savvy place bag. Small non-protective inserts and heavy metal plates for vital protection.
So it's some kind of body armor construction.
Yes.
I'm going to show you an object. Take a moment and examine this. And what's wrong? Keep going. The item you secured in your cruiser, what did you do with it? Well, first of all, where did you take this person?
I took it to the Interstate police barracks.
And was there a particular place within the Interstate police barracks that you went to?
Yes.
And where was that?
The booking room.
Okay. Was there a particular trooper that was working in the booking room that you then dealt with?
Yes.
Is the individual you transported here in this courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you indicate where in the courtroom and tell us what that individual was wearing?
He's sitting over to my right, all the way to the right of that desk, wearing a white shirt.
The record please reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Stephen Bradley, for blue channel for the time.
The record may so reflect.
Thank you. All right. One or two other items, sorry. Show you exhibit 21A as an atom. Person you transported depicted in that photograph. I'll put this up on the projector. What I'd like you to do is use television. You could show the jurors where you're referring to. You can stand next to the TV. Where's the? Okay, so you pointed to the individual standing in the top right of the photograph with his hand on his head. Correct. Okay. And you can wait there. I'm going to hand you exhibit 22. Tell me if the individual you transported appears in that photograph.
Yes, he is.
All right. Let me put that on the projector. So you can indicate to the jurors where. Put exhibit 22 on the projector. You can indicate where. Top right. Okay, so the individual is now on his knees with hands on his head. Correct. In the top right of the photograph. Correct. All right, reach the girl in the headset for a minute. I'm going to show you an object. If you could just tell me, if you could look it over to yourself. Tell me if you recognize what it is. You don't have to hold it up. You recognize what it is? Yes. What is it? It's the body armor that he was wearing. And there's some tags and other information. There's a yellow tag hanging off it that has number starting in 2021, and it's got 084. Do you see that? Yes. You recognize that to be a state police case number? Correct. Okay. Your Honor, I would offer this exhibit. I'm not going to publish it at this moment. Offering it just next. No objection.
No objection.
Without objection, it will be exhibit. Okay. Thank you. Use the yellow tag. So much. And that's all I have for this witness, Your Honor. Very well. Cross-examination. No problem. Sir, is that coming? Good morning.
So you arrived in the area around 10 a.m., is that right, or earlier?
On 128?
Yes.
Oh, 5:30.
Okay. And where were you between 5:30 and 10?
Our station on 128 north, south of where the incident was taking place.
Okay. And so from where you were, could you see the van and the pickup truck?
No.
Okay. What could you see around you?
A lot of cruisers.
And 10 a.m. is when you moved up, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, while this, between 5:30 and 10, you were getting information and updates about what was going on, is that right?
Not much.
Okay. So what were you doing? You were kind of on standby or something else?
We was watching the wood line and stopping vehicles that shouldn't come off the highway.
Okay. And I think you said on your rec, you didn't actually see the individual kind of coming into the road and then walking one by one to the police, is that right?
I did not.
Okay. So by the time you got up there, you were essentially handed a person, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And you identified that person that you transported as Mr. Lucha L or Stephen Francis, right?
That's the name, yes. I did not understand.
Okay. That person you hadn't seen before you put him in your police car, right?
No.
You hadn't had any interaction with him prior to that, right?
No.
And when you were assessing the property that he had on him, he didn't have a firearm, right?
He did not.
He didn't have any ammunition on him, right?
No.
He didn't have a wallet on him, right?
Not that I found.
You didn't find any identification cards on him, right?
Do you want?
Identification cards,
I was looking at it.
okay. You didn't see any cards related to the Moors or Moorish identification cards or anything like that, right?
No.
And you also didn't see a cell phone on him, right?
No.
Okay. Nothing else, thank you.
Be direct. No, you're on. Sergeant, thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. You're excused. So the jury will take our morning recess now. As usual, ask you to attend the political methods as quickly as you can, conveniently, and we're going to try to consume around 11:15.
Well, Raj, sure you exit front row first, and by back row following first.
Anything we need to address before we recess? Okay. 08, as close to 10:15 as possible. Thank you. Please, Ms. Wade.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, John, sir. Welcome. You may proceed, counsel.
Morning, sir. Morning, sir. We, in the next clear report, we have your, full name, please spell your last name for the court report.
Yes, sir. My name is Matthew McDermott. There is McDermott.
And are you employed, sir?
I am, sir. I'm a trooper with Massachusetts State Police.
You got that influence?
Since 2018.
Where are you currently?
I'm currently assigned in the Essex County District Attorney's Office.
What are your duties and responsibilities there?
I primarily do homicide investigations.
And how long have you been with the SSDA?
For approximately a year.
What did you do before that?
Prior to that, I worked out of the SD Medford Barracks.
Were you working as a trooper on July 3rd?
I was.
Did there come a time that morning where you responded to Interstate 95 in the vicinity of Wakefield?
Yes, sir.
About what time?
That would have been the day of the shift, approximately 7 a.m.
And at that time, was that a position that you worked generally in uniform?
Yes, sir.
You in uniform that day?
Yes, sir.
You have a marked or unmarked police vehicle?
I had an unmarked, but it had police marking with license plate, visible lights on the windshield.
Nice. So, around a little after 10 a.m., did you respond to a particular area of your state privately?
Is there at approximately 10 a.m. I responded to the command post, which was 95 north of Route 28.
Okay. And from there, did you go to another particular section of State 95, a little bit further north?
I did, sir.
Where's that?
That was just a little further north, where there was a roadblock set up by members of the Massachusetts State Police staff.
And what could you observe at that point in terms of the vehicles, the officer present, things like that?
Well, there was a number of marked police vehicles. They had armored tactical vehicles. There was a number of, like I said, Massachusetts State Police stop team in tactical gear, armed with long guns. The command post consisted of a state police, an RV with computers and communication technologies, things of that nature.
Okay. Was there a If you take note of any particular individuals at that location.
At that time, I was called to transport, so there were a number of individuals that were brought through the roadblock and to where I was parked.
What's your recollection of where those individuals were positioned on the highway?
I didn't see where they were prior to being taken into custody, but they were walked down to me by members of the Massachusetts State Police stop team.
Okay. And was there particular individuals you transported?
Yes, sir.
And what do you recall about that individual's appearance and clothing?
He was in tactical clothing. When he was brought to me, he was in custody of a SOC team member. He was wearing soft body armor. He had a camera with him.
Okay. What about height and build and other descriptive features?
He was a black male. He was fairly tall. I'd say over 6 feet tall. 250 pounds. He was pretty light.
Okay. What did you do then?
I took the soft body armor from him, secured it in my cruiser. I batted him down a second time, and then I placed him in the rear of my cruiser for transport.
Okay. Where did you transport to?
I transported him to the Medford barracks.
And once at the Medford barracks, is there a particular area of the barracks that you went to with this person?
Initially, he was retained in the cruisers out back. We had a number of individuals that were transported at booking. So he initially remained in the prisoner compartment of the cruiser under supervision. And I went inside the barracks to prepare the booking area.
And I take it that you've been with the state police for a number of years, you've trained on the standard booking procedures by your agencies.
Yes.
Okay. And did you go through that process with this individual?
I attempted to, yes.
Okay. Ultimately, were you able to, after going through the booking process, were you ultimately able to book that person with a particular name?
I wasn't able to complete the full booking process, but we were able to find a name for him.
Okay. The booking process, what types of questions are asked of the person who's coming?
Just pretty strictly demographic questions, name, date of birth, street address, height, weight, things of that nature.
Are photographs taken of the person?
Yes, sir.
And is the person generally fingerprinted for identification purposes?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you a photograph. Please tell me if you recognize the individual depicted in the photograph I placed for you.
I do, sir.
Who is that?
That was Brandon Britton.
Is that the individual you've been describing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you take this photograph?
I did, sir.
And where is it?
That's he's sitting on the bench in the booking area of the bed.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the way he appeared on July 3rd, 2021, when he was at the Bedford Barracks?
Yes, sir.
Offer this as an extra. No objection.
No objection.
Objection would be with the
Place exhibit 58 on the projector for the jurors. I'll show you exhibits 21B as a boy. Excuse me, I'll show you exhibit 14 as a boy. Let me look at it and make you recognize any individuals in it that you were involved in booking on July 3rd, 2021.
Individuals, the follow-up, the photo, and that's the accurate.
And what I would like you to do is I'm going to put this on the projector. If you can just stand next to the screen and indicate, point out for the jury, person to whom you were referring. All right, standing on the far left of the group of individuals in exhibit 21B.
Yes, a follow-up and then.
Okay. Exhibit 23 I'm showing you. Stay where you are. Tell me if that individual you booked appears in that photograph.
Yes, sir. Still the left side of the frame. Yes.
All right, I'm gonna put this one on the projector and we'll do the same exercise. Would you please point out to the jurors the person to whom you're referring? The person on the far left appears to be kneeling in that photograph.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And for Mr. Britton, when you book a person, is the information put into the booking system memorialized of that?
Yes, sir. It's all retained in the RAMS system. That's the software we use. It's stored for a period of years.
Okay. And that includes, for example, name, date of birth, and the information you described previously?
Yes, sir.
Before we get to that information, I'm going to show you another set of documents. You see that I'm showing you something that purports to be State of New York Department of Motor Vehicles, and it purports to be certified at the bottom right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it, you see that the records all appear to pertain to the same individual.
Yes.
Looking at the first page, this certified set of documents, do you recognize the individual in the photograph?
Yes, sir. It's Brandon Britton.
Mark this for identification.
Exhibit CC for identification.
There's no objection. Okay.
Chairman, going to entertain objections to marking exhibits for identification.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard exhibit. I thought
CC for identification.
Now, with respect to the booking information, Mr. Britton, do you recall the date of birth and the address you got for that individual during when you booked that person?
I don't know.
But you testified earlier being memorialized in some fashion.
Yes.
Would you look at the document I've handed to you? Just read it to yourself. Tell me if that refreshes your memory, first of all, it's the date of birth.
It does.
What's the date of birth?
Objection.
7/12.
Same objection.
yes, but I'd like to make a folder showing on the lister device if I could.
So I think the question before the witnesses, what was the date of birth? Correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct. And I'll ask it again just for the records, please. So, Trooper, does that document I played where you refresh your memory as to what the date of birth was for Mr. Britton after the booking process?
Yes, sir.
What's the date of birth?
7/12/2003.
Okay. And so at the time he was in your custody, was he under or over 18?
At that time, we determined that he was under 18.
Now, do you recall Mr. Britton's address for booking purposes at this time?
Yes, sir. I think as a matter of a couple hours later, we determined to be at 236 East Gun Hill Road, Bronx.
In Bronx. And that's in the state of New York?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did anybody come to the barracks later that day with documentation pertaining to Mr. Britton?
Yes, sir. Once it was determined that he was a minor, he was taken out of the holding cell he was in. He was placed in a non-confinement space under supervision. We called his mother. His mother drove up from New York with identifying information.
You say a non-confined space. Was he waiting in the office of your tenant?
Yes, sir.
for you a single page document. Can you tell me if you recognize what that is?
Yes, sir, that is the birth certificate for Brandon.
Okay. And you see that I also have a part of the documentation. It's a subpoena directed to the New York Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Office of Vital Records.
Yes, sir.
See that? And you already said it came from Brandon Burton. Your Honor, I would offer the prosecutor. Maybe you're in a sidebar before it's next. What I would do is I would mark the envelope and subpoena for the document for identification for IP, and I would mark the 2 pages of the document, which appear to be the front and back of certification, stapled together as exhibits for evidence.
So that would be exhibit 59, 2-page document.
Yeah, it's 2 pages.
And the other, the subpoena and envelope would be marked exhibit D, for identification.
Nice.
59.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So much.
Thank you. I'll just put that on the projector. You see that list, the Brandon Messiah Britton, date of birth, July 12, 2003.
Yes,
You
sir.
see that on the screen? And apparently at North Central Bronx Hospital.
Yes, sir.
All right. As part of the booking process, do you normally, or did you attempt to inventory the property on Mr. Britton's person and his possession?
I did, sir.
Did you find any license to carry firearms?
I did not.
Find any firearms identification cards?
No, sir.
What was done with the vest and the camera you described in that information?
Anything that was found on the person was secured as personal property and ultimately entered evidence.
So that would have been entered into evidence, excuse me, at the Bedford Barracks?
Yeah, so the evidence officer of the barracks will have taken it out of the detainee property, which is a secured locker, and placed it in the temporary evidence locker.
Now, that wasn't the only person you booked that day, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you come to meet with Trooper Michael Julesy that day as well?
I did, sir.
And did he have an arrestee with him?
He did.
What did that arrestee look like in terms of appearance and clothing and garments?
I believe his detainee, similar tactical gear, black male, the head covering of some kind.
Okay. Do you remember the color of the head covering?
I believe it was a camouflage color green, like a head wrapping, I believe.
Okay. What did you do with that individual once Trooper Julesy brought that individual to the barracks?
He was brought to the booking area, he was secured to the booking bench, and again, his person was searched, his property was set aside and secured in a locker, and I attended the booking process.
The Trooper Julesy have any property that he passed off to you as a booking officer having transported this person?
He did, so he had the plate carrier, the armor plate carrier.
Did you refer to some kind of body armor vest?
Yes, sir.
As part of the booking process, did you attempt to inventory any personal property in the person's clothing and in their possession?
I did, sir.
What, if anything, was recovered?
I believe it was just the body armor. My knowledge, I think that's the only thing that was seized. Again, most of the property was taken before the gun scene and set aside to a pile.
Okay. You actually booked a total of how many individuals that day?
I booked 4 individuals.
Okay. Let me show you a photograph and ask me if, and I want you to tell me if you had involvement with the person in the photograph. Right, I know you booked 4 people. I want to make sure we're both talking about the same person. Do you recognize the person in the photograph that plays before you?
I do, sir.
How do you recognize him?
That was one of the 4 individuals that I booked and became known as Quinn Cumberlander.
Okay. Did you take the photograph?
I did, sir.
That fair and accurate depiction of the way he appeared on July 3rd, 2021 at the barracks.
Yes, sir.
This is the next one.
This will be exhibit 60. Or objection?
No objection to the trial exhibit.
To the
I mixed it up earlier with the ID, so it's just saying no objection to the trial exhibit.
No objection.
Right, so it'll be exhibit 60.
So my phone.
Okay. And the information for that, the name for that person you gave us was
Quinn Cumberlander.
okay.
My apologies to your earlier question. He had a cell phone as well.
Thank you. Let me ask you this. Do you recognize the documents that placed before you? You see that they include a subpoena to the Rhode Island Department of Motor Vehicles?
Yes, sir.
Paging through these documents, do you recognize an individual depicted in these documents?
I do, sir.
Who's that?
The individual, Quinn Cumberlander.
And the records appear to pertain to that individual, correct?
They do, sir.
Let's mark this for ID.
We marked exhibit PE like Edward for identification.
What was done with that person's vest and phone?
They were similarly placed in the detainee property locker and ultimately secured as evidence in the SP Metro temporary evidence locker.
Okay. Did you locate as part of your inventory of the personal property any license to carry firearms?
I did not.
Any FID cards?
No, sir.
Of course, an FID card is a firearms ID card, correct?
That's correct.
Did you locate any items that purported to be some form of identification on?
I did.
And did you describe generally what they were?
One was some form of nationality card. I believe he described as the nationality card. It was red and it did not bear the name Quinn Cumberlander.
Okay. Was there a second item?
He had a wallet, cell phone, and the body armor.
So is your memory exhausted as to the number of items you recovered?
It is, sir.
Take a moment, look at the 2 items that handed to you. Look them over, tell me if you recognize them.
Yes, sir. The first one is the nationality card that you described it. The second is a student identification card.
Are there photographs on?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the person in the photographs?
I do.
Who's in the photographs?
I couldn't come along.
Are those 2 cards in the same condition today as they were when you first saw them on July 3rd, 2020?
Yes, sir.
What about these? Is the next.
Same objection for the nationality card.
Sure, sir.
No objection.
Let me, objections are overruled, they may be marked that it's 60 and 61.
Oh my God.
So just for the record, put it exhibit 61 on the projector for the jurors. You see, sir, that this purports to be a student identification card for somebody named Quinn Kabir L.
Yes, sir.
It's got the photograph on the front.
Yes, sir.
And, exhibit 62.
I'm sorry, for the record, I misspoke. I said there would be exhibits 60 and 61, but that was an error. It should be exhibits 60 and 62.
I have 61 and 62.
61 and 62. Oh, then you misspoke. I hope. Actually, I'm not sure. I think it's still my mistake, but can I just see the one that you just showed, the student identification?
Yes,
card, exhibit 60.
61.
61. Okay.
Yes.
And the national identity card is exhibit 62.
Yes.
Sorry for the confusion.
And you see this purport to be something called an identification card
Yes, sir.
for somebody with an appellation of Quinn Kabir L. You see that?
Yes, sir.
You know, with a mailing address of 255 Main Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Republic, with some numbers after that.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the card itself, what do you observe about the lamination at the very edge of the card?
Lamination ends before the end of the plastic of the card itself.
And your time as a state police trooper, have you made motor vehicle stops?
I have.
Have you been presented during those stops with a variety of state and federal forms of identification?
I have.
Do you recognize this to be any such form of identification?
No, sir.
Before we move on, please look at exhibit 21B as in boy. Tell me if the gentleman you described as the gentleman you booked, Mr. Cumberlander, appears in that photograph.
say I think he's the second from the right, but it's difficult to distinguish between.
Fair enough. Let me show you exhibit 23 and ask you the same question.
Yes, but it appears to be him on the second from the right.
I'm going to put that on the projector.
The second exhibit you show exhibit
23. And I'll zoom out. Could you walk over to the television and point to the jurors so they know to whom you're referring? Sorry, I didn't see where you're pointing.
Black,
Okay. Second from the right in exhibit 23. You may have a seat. Now we talked about 2 individuals who were involved in booking out of the 4, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay. Let me move on to another person. How is this third person dressed compared to the rest of the group?
I apologize, sir. Which individual was it?
Well, was there an individual who came in not wearing a hat or wearing some kind of colored head cover?
I believe that would be Mr. Antonio.
Okay. How was that person dressed compared to the other people you had booked that morning?
Similarly dressed, tactical gear, similar attire.
Okay. Did you photograph him as part of the booking process?
I did, sir.
Recognize the individual in the photograph that appears before you.
I do, sir.
What do you recognize as?
At the time, there was John Doe number 2.
Objection, move to strike.
How was he later identified? I'll refresh.
Okay, so members of the jury, you were to disregard the answer, the last answer which is given. It's stricken from the record. You may not consider it.
So this individual today, how do you know?
Mr. Antonio, Omari.
Fair and accurate description of Mr. Antonio as he appeared at the barracks that day.
Yes, sir.
Next.
No objection.
Objection.
Without objection, it will be exhibit 63.
They take it to the photographs. Take it after the head covering removal.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you if you recognize the individual in this picture.
Objection.
May we be heard on the list?
Yes. In the Bedford Barracks book, I imagine there's a computer that you do the booking on.
Yes, sir.
In this photograph, we're looking on the projector of Mr. Antonio. You're seated on some kind of chair or bench, is that right?
That's correct.
Imagining you're at the booking computer at Medford. Where I'm standing in the courtroom, am I closer or further away than this person would have been to you during the booking process?
Further away.
Well, I'm going to walk towards you. You tell me when I get close enough. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say, would you agree with me? This is 6 to 8 feet. Okay. Was the lighting similar to the way it appears in Exhibit 63 on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long did the booking process take with this particular individual?
I would say 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. And is your attention during this time focused on this individual?
Yes.
Look at this to yourself. Tell me if you can recognize the person in the photograph. This is the photograph I began to show you a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
Who do you recognize that person to be?
I believe that's Mr. Antonio.
And no, I can either mark this for ID or offer the defendant. Whatever the court prefers.
I'll leave it. You want to introduce it if any subject to a motion is straight, if not properly authenticated, you can do that if you wish. I would accept it on that basis.
Okay. I'll offer it.
It's exhibit 64. And the objections that we discussed inside are noted and preserved.
Putting exhibit 64 on the projector. See that the individual in the photograph appears to be seated inside some kind of area.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And appears to have some kind of black outer covering here. See that?
Yes, sir.
And has some kind of tan cloth over his head. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Show you a packet of paper. So, see that this appears to be a set of records sent to the to this court, to the clerk's office.
Yes, sir.
And it's from the Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles Department.
Yes, sir.
There a person depicted in those records?
There is, sir.
Who's that?
That appears to be Mr. Antonio.
Okay. And the records appear to have a whole bunch of information about that person. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, sir.
Marcus Friday.
It would be F like Frank for identification.
Either I'm showing you a set of documents produced under subpoena to the clerk's office.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you see that they contain a set of booking information.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the individual depicted in the photographs of that booking?
I do, sir.
Who is it?
It is Mr. Antonio.
Marcus Friday as well.
The GG for identification.
Can't remember if I asked it before, but did you attempt to make an inventory of this sort of property, the Antonio property?
Yes, sir.
Do you locate any firearm identification cards on the person?
No, sir.
What about licenses to carry firearms?
No, sir.
Right. There was we've now talked about three. There was a fourth person you booked that day for. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. And who brought that gentleman to you? Oh,
I believe that was Sergeant Luis.
okay. What do you recall about that person's appearance?
Similarly attired, the other individual's tactical gear. He came in not wearing, but with the body armor plate carrier.
Okay. And what was done with the body armor?
That was also placed in, TJ property, lockers.
We'll show you. Producing evidence is exhibit 57. And direct your attention to the little yellow tag attached to section, item 57. Do you see the case number?
I do.
Do you recognize this as in part because of the case number and the appearance of the item?
Yes, I believe that my handwriting tags.
Okay. So is that the vest?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we have a stipulation that we can present to the court before we move on. Hand it up to the court if the court wants to see it first, or it's been executed by all parties.
Let me just, review it before you, and it'll be marked as an exhibit to be proposed to,
I was going to read it.
that's fine, let me just. Tell you what, I have one question that maybe you could say. So it's just about 12:35. Why don't we excuse the jury for lunch? Jurors, we're going to follow a slightly different protocol today because I have to have a brief hearing on another case completely unrelated to this case, but it's been scheduled for some time. We're gonna recess lunch now, 12:35. We're gonna ask you to be back here at 2. So you're gonna have an hour and 25 minutes for lunch. It's unavoidable. Hopefully, weather's not as nice as it was on Monday, but hopefully you can enjoy a little extra lunch time and we'll see you in 2.
All right, jury exit. Can we start the first roll, followed by second roll? Please bring all your items.
Council, I'm mindful of the time, and Mr. Abdullah's days, religious requirement. So what I want to raise is this: the case law tells us that stipulations to an element of the offense require that they be signed not only by defendant's counsel but by the defendant. Identification is in a gray area. It's not an element of the offense in a traditional sense, because when you look up, it doesn't say the person is who they say they are. But I have a memory of cases that suggest that identification is analogous to an element of the offense. Now, I suppose this stipulation doesn't say that Mr. Lucia L was arrested at the scene. It only says that this person in this photograph was identified as Mr. Lucia L. But it's close enough to the issue of identification that I think it's worth thinking about whether Mr. Lucia L should be required to sign the stipulation. I'm inclined to say it makes sense to do that, because if we're wrong in that direction, no harm done. Mr. Lucia L is just certifying that this is in fact a stipulation. But if we're wrong the other way, it could lead to error. So I'm going to leave the parties to discuss it. If you come up with an agreed course of action, that's fine. If you don't, we'll address it as soon right before the jury comes in at 2.
For the record, that would only be Lucia L would have the same. It's the only part of that.
I think that's right. I think that's right, because this doesn't, as to Mr. Abdullah Bey, Mr. Lucia L's identity is not, as far as I can see, analogous to an element. But as to Mr. Lucia L, his identity is analogous to an element. So
Understood. I just want to put on.
I think that's right. All right, so we're going to be recessed for lunch. We'll reconvene at 2. Bear in mind that it's possible, depending on how the sentencing hearing happens, that it might get pushed back 5 or 10 minutes, but I hope not.
Thank you.
All rise.
Yes.
You should take that with you. Yeah, somebody else should.
And should focus on the person you're booking or on other things?
For the majority of the time, it was directed to Ms. Perez, but there was other paperwork. I was typing different stuff.
And it's again occurring in the same lighting conditions he described previously, is that right?
Yes.
As Mr. Perez sits here in the courtroom today, is clothing the same or different than when you saw him on July 3rd?
It's different.
I'm going to hand you 2 photographs. Can you tell me if you recognize anybody in that first photograph?
Objection.
The same, the please based situation.
Yes, I have to be heard.
Me. I'll hand up the figure.
I have that photograph. Yeah. For mother, just give this. Thank you.
We can just mark that photograph by you. Just
Yes, the photograph HJJ for.
Finally, Trooper McDermott, when you dealt with Mr. Britton early on, what was the name he gave you initially?
I believe the name initially was Messiah Bay.
Thank you, Chairman. Nothing further, please.
Cross examination, Mr. Thompson.
No cross.
Mr. Racer.
Quickly. Afternoon, Sergeant. So you testified earlier that during the booking process of Mr. Quinn Cumberlander, he had 2 Moorish identifications on him that you were presented with during your testimony, right?
Yes, at the time of booking, I examined one of them. I did not examine this.
Okay. And those came from a wallet he had on him?
That's correct.
Okay. And were there other ID cards in that wallet?
I did not find any other ID cards.
So those are the only 2 cards in the wallet?
Yes.
Okay. Now you, one moment, please. On direct exam, you testified that Mr. Britton, his date of birth was July 12th, 2003.
Yes.
Okay. And so that means had he been arrested 9 days later, he would have been in just a regular jail cell, right? Not in that non-confining space.
Oh yeah, that was more routine.
Thank you. That's done.
Redirect. Better on. Thank you. Excuse the witness.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good for your testimony and your excuse. Thank you, Mr. Van Yours, regrettably, you just came back from lunch. I don't think it makes sense to start another one this now. I had a presentation that I had to do downtown at 4:30, so that's why I had to leave here probably at 3. So I don't think it makes sense to start a new witness, and I hope you won't be upset if we have to dismiss you even a little earlier than you thought. As you're seeing, trial scheduling and trial practice is an art more than science. We don't always get it right, but I appreciate your patience with the process. Remember that tomorrow we're going to ask you to be here at 10 to try to avoid this type of less than optimal use of your time. So you don't need to be here, just 5 minutes on. Let me remind you to please continue not to discuss the evidence with anyone, in this case, including each other. And that includes not only personal phone conversations, but also using the cell phone or other tablet or other electronic devices to text, chat, email, blog, or post anything about the case on social media, other electronic media, or anywhere else. You must continue to have no communication whatsoever with the lawyers and parties and witnesses in this case. I expect they will abide by the order if they have no communication whatsoever with you. You must also continue not to be watching any coverage about this case in traditional media, social media, or anywhere else. Please remember my two instructions. If you are exposed to any type of coverage, first, do your best to minimize the information you take in. Talk about how you can do that as quickly as sort of turn away from the material as quickly as you can. And if you are exposed to anything, please do not mention it in any way to your fellow jurors, but instead, your next court officers let them know that you need to speak with them in private, and then you're in private with them, let them know what it is you're exposed to, so they can let me know. Finally, please continue not to do any research or investigation about this case, online or otherwise. So that means don't go to any location you mentioned testimony, or if your sort of ordinary travels take you by one of these destinations, please just go by and ordinarily don't slow down or stop and make any observations about it. And don't use Google or any other search engine, online or otherwise, to know about anything about the case, the trial, and the people involved in it. So for that, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.
All right, jury exit. Looks on the front row, follow back row, please bring my items.
Council, I know we have the issue of clips from Mr. Abdullah-Bey's body worn camera that we're going to address first thing tomorrow morning. Please do be here on time. Is there anything else that we should plan to address in that hour, or address either now briefly or in that hour tomorrow?
So I guess just this to the videos, just heard vague comments about the document verbal completeness. I didn't catch the other basis, which sounded more like a all or nothing disability issue. I remember there being two legal bases discussed. So far as we can get some ideas whether there's going to be a document verbal completeness as to which videos, whether it's the beginning of the clip or the end of the clip or something in between, as soon as possible, just to prepare for the court a copy of the full.
Yeah, what we'd like to do, I think, is have the original, because there are a series of 5-minute videos. Whichever, and maybe not all the videos are the ones that are being objected to. Take whichever one to the subject, present that with then the edited or the slimmed down version and the transcript, and the court can watch one and then watch the other one to read the transcript and you know, make a decision as to.
Mr. Reisler, can you preview briefly Mr. Wall's question, as I understand it, is there's issues in your mind with the document verbal completeness.
Yeah, so I have my notes here. I can do it either right now or I can do it with the Commonwealth.
Why don't you do it offline with the Commonwealth?
About what specific parts of the videos I think have been essentially trimmed too much.
Yeah.
So that's issue number one. And issue number two that I think we need to address is the Commonwealth, I expect, is going to, similarly to what happened with Trooper Casey's body worn camera, admit for as a chalk a transcript, and on that transcript, what the Commonwealth has so far produced is a transcript that includes speaker names. I think there's going to be a jury question about whose voice is heard doing what. There are parts of videos where you can see people, there are parts of videos where you can't, and you can only hear voices. So I think there's essentially a voice identification issue that relates to the transcript, and then also just more generally to whatever the testimony is going to be.
I understand. I think now that it's clear, and I think you said that before, but I had to say it in this role because I had forgotten the second round as well. So excuse me, that's helpful. What I'm going to suggest is the parties talk offline, including Mr. Thompson. I think you need to be a part of that too, since
Yes, I have a verbal completeness issue, just like Attorney Razorcone does. I'm joining with her.
very well. So, and what I'm hoping is that you can narrow the issues, so that we spend it doesn't take much time that we're only doing truly disputed issues tomorrow. One thing I can suggest is that what I've seen work in the past where there are issues as far as speaker IDs with chalk transcripts, that is, a non-official transcript, is one thing you might do is figure out a way to present it so that you can say, Commonwealth submits that this is Mr. Perez / Lucia L. Defense contests this, or something that conveys to the jury that this is a disputed issue and what the positions of the parties are, which would then alert the jury that it's an issue that they need to resolve, and I can instruct them with that it's there. They have to make a determination as to speak in there. But yeah, the more you can do in advance, the better, because we'll be able to move more quickly along. All right, thank you all.
Do it, all rise.
Let's